It's time for this week's UpLift. Three ordinary guys that want you to find the freedom that is available by knowing our Lord Jesus Christ. So sit back and enjoy UpLift, brought to you by the Fulcrum Center. Visit our site at thefulcrumcenter.org.
Well, hey guys, not exactly what we had planned, but still, we're all together.
I know, it's great. I love
Yeah.
technology, at least in these points of technology.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio right now. Actually, I'm in South Euclid. You can't say you're in Cleveland because people will get angry and say, well, this is South Euclid. No, I'm at my son's house, spending the evening with him. And we had talked about you guys being in the studio and me being up here, but things happened, plans changed, and well, here we are doing another Zoom video. But
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
So how are you guys?
I'm in my house in Martins Ferry.
Okay.
And I'm in my house in St. Clairsville.
All right.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And I'm Phil Bliss.
I'm Ian Thornton.
And I'm Chad McLeish.
And this is UpLift.
Welcome to UpLift.
Yes. All right. Well, we got through some of our technical issues. I had to help Ian through setting up his mic, but it took over his speakers. And yeah, believe me, that drove me crazy the first time I ever did that. I was like, why did my speakers go out? Well, you can plug in headphones into the back of that microphone. And so everything, that way you can hear yourself talking. But yeah, it took me a while to figure that one out. So you're way ahead of the game now.
Well, only because you journeyed through the wilderness,
Yeah.
which I greatly appreciate, and I would rather not listen to myself talk. So
yeah,
that being said,
yeah, that's
no, it's great. It's working out well.
Yeah, and you mentioned journeying through the wilderness. That's kind of one of the topics I talked about the other night on Bible study, and it was I thought it was pretty good. I had a lot of people just kind of looking at me, but I don't know if I thought it was pretty good though. But
9 times out of 10, if somebody's looking at you like you have lobsters coming out of your ears, you're probably on track.
Yeah. I mean, everybody was paying attention. There wasn't anybody doing this, the whole time.
Yeah.
So it was pretty good. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, too, even in my own personal study, I've been led to read Exodus.
Okay.
And so, here we are, talk about walking through the wilderness and all, but really just looking at the whole process, really been reading in Moses and where he's at with Pharaoh and getting ready for this journey that, we know about, that we know they're going to step into.
Right. And that was a promise of God to take them to the promised land.
Yeah.
Good intro, Phil.
Yeah, you like that. Well, that's what we're going to talk about tonight, was the promises of God. And,
yeah,
he told them, hey, I'm going to take you to the promised land. This is something from the Bible study, but I just learned this. And I just wanted to share this because now I can't unsee it. Every time I look somewhere in the Bible, I see it now. But I always thought that it was 600,000 people who came out of Egypt. It's 600,000 able men to go to war. So that doesn't include the women and children and the older generation too. There was probably like 2 million people that came out of Egypt. And then, I go to Deuteronomy in the Bible study. I said, I want to show you something. There was a number that was used, and I wanted to make a parallel to the Gospel of John. And I read it, and it says, God kept his promise, and 600,000 warring men were counted. And I'm like, there it is again. How many times have I read this in Deuteronomy chapter 2, and I didn't read that they were warring men? And it blew my mind that I had seen it for the first time, and I've read the Bible I don't know how many times, but that was a promise as well.
Yes.
A promise to Abraham that the people, your offspring will be more numerous than the stars in the sky. And if you look at the sky at night at any one point throughout the year, you can only see about 600,000 stars, and they had 620,000 warring men and had a whole lot more than that. So they had more than the stars in the sky come out of Egypt. When God makes a promise, he keeps it.
That's impressive, Phil. I'm impressed that you knew how many stars were in the sky.
I had to look that one up. I didn't count them.
Well,
Oh
then.
man. Now we're disappointed now.
Well,
We're
I
less
can't
impressed.
get past the Big Dipper. Is it 5 or 6 stars?
That's a great point, and that's a great promise.
Yeah, it is. And that's
It's
one of many. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's the I will. I mean, I will deliver you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that that's one, honestly, I've been holding on to more deeply now than I have in the past. And even though there's been those times of us, and, I'm just talking about our family, but when I say that, more Julie and I, you just stepping in from one place to the next and going from one place to the next as the Lord calls. When you end up with your children and then they're coming along with you, then that's a deeper level of commitment. And this just from my own experience, and just going, well, this just isn't Julie and I, and we can make this work. And all of a sudden now you're children and school and the list keeps going on. So that I will deliver you. And that's all throughout the Old Testament. I mean, here we are, we're talking about the children of Israel coming out of Egypt and then, into the promised land, and on and on and on it goes. And then you can go into the prophets and all. And there's many, many times that the Lord says, I will deliver you. And he was faithful. He kept every one of them. Every promise that he gave, he is trustworthy. And that's one of those things to really grab a hold of and go, I can look at my circumstances that are here on this earth, but am I willing to really grab a hold of the spiritual and heavenly promise of my Father to go, yes, I'm gonna take care of you and I'm gonna deliver you from what you're facing.
Yeah.
And so you get to choose. You get to choose. Am I going to trust this or am I not? Am I going to make a way? Am I going to make a way, or am I going to follow his way? And that's a deep look into yourself, and to really say, you know what, I'm going to trust him. I'm going to trust him on this.
When I was a kid, if someone said, I promise, you took that to the bank. If a kid said that, people just didn't break promises. But as you get older, you realize that words are words, and people use words when they don't really have anything to back it. And it's because of that I think that at times we don't trust God. We compare ourselves to God, and we can't do that. We have to remember he is God. I think is it Psalm 46 that says, be still and know that I am Lord?
Yes.
Yeah, you got to let go of what we are and know that he is God, and he's going to keep every promise he makes, whether it's in the word of God or the promises he speaks to our hearts. He keeps them without fail.
Right.
Yeah. And his promises we can count on them because of who he is. And the one promise that I always keep thinking about over the past few years is that he will not forsake us. He will not leave us. He will not forsake us.
Yeah.
And I think to all of our human relationships that we have, and even our very best friends and our family and that sort of thing, they can leave us and they can forsake us without even maybe intentionally doing it or even realizing they're doing it, that sort of thing. If you're, maybe you're having a bad day or, whatever the situation is, you can unwillingly do those things. And so with God, that just doesn't happen. But the other part too, that Kathy has reminded me of before, that some of the promises are not just for this earth. I mean, some of his promises are going to carry forward into eternity. that sort of thing. And even, you were talking about Abraham and that sort of thing. And some of those promises took place on earth for his descendants, but that there's eternal meaning in some of his promises as well, not just what we see in the physical in front of us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like run and not grow weary. Can you imagine?
Right.
I just want to be able to run again. I can't run anymore because of my hips, but so I don't even know what it's like to run anymore. But man, to run and not grow weary. And I actually have dreams that I'm running great distances, and I could just as easily take a car, but I choose to run, and I'm not out of breath at all, and my hips don't hurt. And it's pretty amazing when you have dreams like that, but it's a promise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. Another one for me is out of Isaiah 41, I will uphold you.
My righteous right hand.
Yeah, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And that's those. I at points I take that and apply that to those days that are where I'm feeling down and lost, and you can go on and on. We've all been there. But just that whole idea of being upheld, lifted up, and here we are on UpLift, and that whole thing of that the Lord's righteousness and his goodness and his rightness will lift us up, will uphold us. So it's not that we're like, man, I just feel like things are falling apart. And the Lord's like, no, in me and in my righteousness upholding you, things aren't falling apart. It's not being, but he's holding things up. He's holding things steady. And to think that, and the enemy wants us to think that things are in a world of disruption and chaos. But God's like, no, in my righteousness, I'm taking and I'm holding things up. I'm holding it together. I'm holding it consistent and stable, not falling and feeling like everything is just disintegrating. That's what the enemy wants you to believe. But that promise is that, what? Once we get our eyes off the storm, out of Matthew 14, right? Peter, once we get our eyes off the storm and we reach up and we grab a hold of his hand, then that's that hand, just like the hand that Jesus used to pull Peter up out of the waves, is the same hand, the same righteous hand that God promises us in Isaiah 41, that's going to hold us up and not fall. And that's powerful, because in today's world, there's a lot that comes against us through every avenue that you can think of to press us down, to push us down, to get us to feel fearful and scattered and worried and chewing our nails because we're not sure what's going to happen. Well, what about that promise? What about that promise that God's given every one of his children, that I'm going to uphold you with my righteous right hand? And that's something really to literally grab onto, that we need to let our spirits grab a hold of that and let him lift us up.
In other words, we need to stop doubting.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's speaking to me. Like I was telling you guys earlier, it's like, man, it's been a tough day. And for me, just to be able to be here and be with, not just with you guys, but to discuss his promises, takes that perspective that sometimes we find ourselves in and realigns it with where it should be. And to talk about his promises, to talk about his word, and it has to just ignite, or at points reignite your heart, just to be in tune and in step with him. So I can testify to it now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting.
One thing that Kathy has plastered all over our house when we moved here was, because a point of confession, we both fall into, Kathy and I, my wife Kathy and I, we both fall into this. Sometimes we get into really short-sighted thinking Like we're not looking at things the way we should. We get caught up in small thinking. And so she's plastered this all over our house and different things. And she's got, all sorts of different pictures and things that people have. And it's Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And so that is a promise, and it motivates you to realize that he has more for you than what you think you are capable of.
Oh yeah.
Or,
right.
We're all susceptible to feeling beat down, defeated, and all those sorts of things. So this is a good reminder, and we have it plastered everywhere here at the house, just to remind us that, hey, like just because we're having a bad day or bad week, or we're really bummed out about some turn of events that have happened or whatever, that we need to keep our eyes focused on what his promises are, which is better than the moment that we're in.
Yeah. Absolutely. Also in Jeremiah 29, he says, you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. And I tell people that all the time. I say, because they say, well, I want to know God the way you do. Well, ask him. Well, I have asked him. We'll keep asking. Because when you seek him, you will find him. He wants to be found. That's a promise.
Right.
And then he knows the plans he has for you too.
And that goes back to your point of doubt or unbelief and that sort of thing. And so often, we don't even realize we do it, but we have this doubt, this kind of subconscious, we'll call it. Maybe that's not the right word, but we have this doubt that, that lies in us and it holds us back. If we could get rid of that and just, follow him with all of our heart, like you talked about, and get rid of the disbelief, get rid of that defeat, get rid of that doubt, and even that doubt that we're not really even shining a light on, put the light on it, get rid of it. And usually what has to happen for most of us is we got to be back pretty far into the corner for that to happen.
Right.
We got to be staring down the barrel of a serious problem, a big issue, a real crisis or tragedy in our life. And so many people, that's what it takes. But imagine if we would do that before we get to that point, before we get to that crisis, or before we get to that really bad situation, to where we cast all that stuff out and really follow him with all of our heart. Then we could do like Phil talks about, we can find him even in the good times. We can have that close relationship and be with him even when things are good, and know him even better when things get bad.
Yeah, exactly. And you hit on it. It's about the relationship. It's not about religion. It's not about doing this and saying this prayer and then going to church and giving this money. It's not about that. That's not how you find him. You find him when you seek him with all your heart, and that's the relationship. And that's what drives out the doubt too. I mean, when you ask him and he comes around and he shows you, just like Jesus did, he healed people so there would be no doubt. They would know who he was. Yeah. God will prove himself.
Yeah, most of the people that I run into that don't believe God's promises have never stepped into them. And that can be, and I think we would all agree, that can be a very challenging place, because you're having to let go of the control that we really think that we have, that we really don't. But we let go of that control and really put it into his hands and let him prove himself. And because he, what he says is true, and it will be, and seek him and you will find him, remove the, let him even too. That's one of the things too, one of my questions had always been, well, how do I get rid of this doubt? How do I lose this?
Yes.
And, it just that kind of thing too, until I really got to the point where, seeking him and going, so God, how do you want to get rid of this doubt in my life? Because it's a warm, fuzzy blanket to me. I love it. I love to hold on to it because I'm comfortable with it. But how do you want to remove that from me? And just letting him lay that out in front of me and following that path. And that being removed, but that put me in a place of getting to trust him and to look up these promises and read these things and these passages out of Isaiah or Jeremiah or all throughout scripture, and read those things and go, okay, well, I'm going to trust him in this. The only way I'm going to build that trust is to trust him. I get to experience it myself. And then you walk away with testimony after testimony about who he is and that he will uphold his promises to us. He's not a father who lies to his children.
No.
He isn't. Even though we may have experienced it on earth, and Chad, this was one of the points you were bringing up. There's things in the earth that we, and physically, naturally, that we've experienced, but we really need to step into the spiritual side of things and let God our Father show that he is a good father. And he's not going to lie to us.
Absolutely. James chapter 1,
yes,
verse 17.
Yeah.
All good things come from the Father of lights, from heaven,
right,
to his children. Yep.
It's really good.
And there have been times I've really messed things up, and I've prayed that God take this bad thing this big epic mistake that I made. It's somehow
sure. Yeah, absolutely. But, and
it is, and I get just so many examples over the last couple of weeks that have just come to me just through my own children, and just there's sincerity in the mess up. And man, it's just been such an example to me to just go, they are bringing these wrongs to me because they trust me. And that's been speaking volumes to me. And I know that God is going, hey, Ian, have I gotten your attention with this yet? Just follow their lead, son. Follow their lead and come talk to me about these things. And it's been great. It's been great.
And there's a timing component to these things, like
it is.
His promises are absolutely going to come true for everybody. It's a matter of when. And the situations and the timing of it. And I think we have to remember that because, it's the thing we talk about a lot on here is just, we want things on our terms. We want it when we want it. We want it how we want it. We want it in the situation we want it. And, his plan is bigger than ours. We know this. So we just have to keep that in mind, and that's where the patience comes in. But his promises absolutely come true. Our choices, Phil's been big on choice lately. We've been talking about that. He's been teaching the choices.
Yeah.
And but our choices can kind of delay his promises or send them out on the wild goose chase, which means that all we did was we just delayed his promises.
Right. You didn't cancel them. You delayed them.
Yeah. Yep. We just sent him on the long road, the detour.
Right.
But yeah, we just have to remember that and even sometimes the promises will come in ways that we don't expect. We'd never expect, or they don't come necessarily the way that we want them to, because he knows things that we don't. So he will give us promises, but it won't look how we think they'll look.
Yeah. I think another thing to bring up with this is that there are times that we, in God's promises and his, I'll just use his supply or his provision as an example. And God has promised to take care of us. We don't need to worry about tomorrow. If the birds of the air are being taken care of, then how much more is he going to take care of us? And there are times that as we seek the Lord to understand that provision is coming, there are times that he may even reveal that his desires that it comes through XYZ, whatever it may be. And sometimes that's a person. And sometimes those people don't obey. And so then we're left waiting, not empty-handed, but waiting. That doesn't mean just because the Lord had intended to bring something or take care of something through someone and they don't follow through, doesn't mean that it isn't coming.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't look at the person, or because it didn't come the way and this kind of goes back to what you were saying too, Chad, just because it didn't come the way we thought it was going to come, doesn't mean that God's a liar. By no means.
Right.
It's just different, and it may not be the timing that we want. So it's one of those things to where the enemy really can get in those situations and start pointing fingers at other people, and especially believers and within the church, to really start to cause division. So we need to keep our eyes on the promiser, not the person whom it may come through, but to keep our eyes on him. He's faithful, and it'll all come to pass. It'll all be truth.
Absolutely. I want to bring something up kind of along that line, that this is what helped me a lot. The few times as a child when I did go to church, I was listening, and it was very formal and very structured, and they prayed a certain way. And when the pastor was talking about speaking to God, it was very reverent, and that's absolutely necessary. We give God reverence. But there was one time where I was angry, and I said, okay, God, if you've promised this, then I want you to prove it to me. I may not have said it exactly like that, but I was speaking to him like I would speak to one of you, close friends of mine. And God didn't strike me down with lightning. I didn't even care. I was so angry that I was like, you've made this promise. I know you made this promise, then see it through. And he did. He did. And that not only helped me to trust him, it enhanced my relationship with him. Now, I don't always talk to him that way, but at the same time, I don't say, oh, Father of heavenly lights, how great thou art. This is my request. I don't do something formal like that. Lord, here's what's going through my mind right now. And I know you already know, but you get to that point where you can be genuine with him, and he will genuinely keep his promises when you are. You know what I mean?
I do. That's good.
And that informal relationship is key.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting to say, because that's really what the Lord's after.
Yes.
He's after that informal, quote unquote, that informal relationship is more pure to him than what we think in Christendom today, that you need to have a formal relationship with him.
Right.
And he's like, man, cut the junk. Just talk to me. I know who you are.
Yeah.
Just speak to me. Be real. Just be real.
Yeah.
And I think he embraces that.
Look at Abraham. If I may be so bold to ask you, if I can find 10 people, will you spare the city? Okay, God, if I can find 5 people, it's not, not laying out a bunch of paperwork and saying, okay, here's how I'm going to do this, and let's see what God says. No, and that's what the Pharisees started to teach too. They were teaching religion too, and they missed the Messiah when he was being very personal with everybody he came in contact with.
Yeah.
Just showed us the way to have a relationship with him.
Yeah. And, when you have that close relationship, even in in the world, even close relationships that we have,
Mhm.
isn't there a desire that we have to uphold friendship, relationship, promises?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? All of those things. It's like,
Yeah.
I have this close relationship with these people, and so therefore I want to be there for them.
Mhm.
I want to help them. I want to, do you know what I'm saying? And I
Absolutely.
just see that in the scriptures, that's how God looks at us. I mean, if he's willing to give his son for us, how much more is he willing to uphold his promises to us?
Yeah.
It's one of those things to really grab a hold of and allow the Lord to just move in your life and take you into what he desires for you.
Amazing.
It is. It really is.
Well, hey guys, I gotta meant to say this at the beginning, but since we are getting like right at that time,
Mhm.
we are not going to be on Thanksgiving night. We're going to take a break. So, we'll be on every week up until Thanksgiving, Thursday night, then we'll take Thanksgiving off, and then we'll be on again.
Yeah.
So, and actually, yes, that's correct. Because what we're recording now will actually
Mhm.
be before Thanksgiving, but we'll have another one that will play after Thanksgiving that we will record
Right.
before
Mhm.
Thanksgiving. So just wanted to let everybody know that watches or listens that don't look for us on November 24th. We're going to be taking a break with our families.
Yeah.
So,
Enjoy lining up somewhere for Black Friday sales.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah,
Is it, or spend time with your family on Thanksgiving?
yeah. And I was going to be going to a basketball game, but that's not going to be happening now. So I'm going to actually relax a little bit on Black Friday. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it too.
I'm
Are you
putting
going to
up Christmas
videotape this,
lights.
Bill? We want to see evidence that you're going to relax.
Okay. I'll,
Yeah,
I'll knock out 5 more chapters of the next book.
just 5. Not
That's
the usual
relaxing for me
10.
though. That's relaxing.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoy
That's
it.
great.
I'm about a fourth of the way through the next one already, and yeah,
Fantastic.
so it'll come out hopefully sometime in early 2023.
Man, that's great.
Yeah,
The second book is mind blowing.
yeah, you liked it?
Yeah, it will open a lot of people's eyes
Okay,
to
good.
new ways of thinking.
That's what I was going for.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
It opened
Yeah.
my eyes. I mean, the things the Lord was giving me, I was like, wow, okay, I'm putting this in there. So,
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's great.
Yep.
Oh, looking forward to it. I know a lot of people are.
yeah,
So just again, amazing, and praise the Lord and what he's been doing and how he's been putting things together. It's well, there again, is it not a fulfillment of a promise
I was
though?
just going to say it
Oh,
absolutely is. Many years ago, I said, I'd like to write a book. And I know the Lord said, write it. I'm like, write it. He kept
yeah,
encouraging me, write it. And I did. And it got published. And now the second one's published, or it's going to be published. And so, yeah, God, you got to trust him. Like you said,
yeah,
trust him. Know that he's always going to keep them. Never
yeah,
forsakes us, as you said, Chad.
Mhm.
What a
yeah.
great conversation we had tonight. I really enjoyed this one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's very, very encouraging.
Yeah.
Very uplifting.
Yes. Yes.
Very uplifting.
Yeah. So, all
All
right.
righty.
We will be back again next week,
Yep.
but not on the 24th.
No,
Yeah.
not on the 24th.
All
It
right.
sounds great.
All right. Good night,
Well,
everybody.
yep. Have a good evening.
Have a great evening.
We'll see you.